was a Jew, an Israelite, because when you read the Bible, Christ was a Jew. The earliest Madonnas of Britain, like those of Rome, were black. Check that out. So that's what the history books have to say. If you don't want to believe the Bible, history proves that the real Jews are black. History proves that we're the real Jews. Let's get another book. There's a book called Nature Knows No Color Line. And it's also written by the author, J. Rogers. Excuse me. And let's jump into this book in page 91 and find out what the scholar has to say. Page 91. The title of the chapter, this is chapter 9, is Were the Jews Originally Negroes? Let's read on. It says, European painters and sculptors, by their use of white models to typify biblical characters, have falsified tremendously the physiognomy, physical features of the ancient Jews. So he's saying that going into history and research, he's found out that what? They set up white models to pose for the paintings we see today as the Jews, as Moses, who was a Jew, who was an Israelite. And that's false. But do good Christians ever stop to think that, I'm sorry, I skipped a part. We're familiar with the scores of portraits offered to us as Christ. But do good Christians ever stop to think that what he really looked like? Josephus, first century historian, described Christ, who was a Jew and Israelite, as dark skinned and simple in appearance. So now even history described Christ as black. We go into the scriptures. Let's get Revelations 1:14 to prove that Christ was a so-called black man. This is Revelations 1:14. Revelation of Jesus Christ. That's Revelations 1:1. Let's jump to verse 14 now. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. Meaning he had fully gray hair, and it was the texture of wool. What people have hair that look like wool? So-called black people. And his eyes was a flame of fire, because when you read other scriptures, Christ drank wine. He didn't get drunk, but he drank wine. So what? His eyes were bloodshot red. And his feet like unto fine brass. What color is brass? It's a brown metal. Golden brown. So Christ had brown skin. Read on, it says, as if they burned in a furnace. So Christ looked like you took him and burnt him up in a furnace. According to the Bible, Christ was a so-called black man, and he was a Jew, an Israelite. All right? And now from what we just read in this history book, even history describes him as being dark, as being a so-called black man. Showing that what? A lot of these pictures that you see today of the Jews being white, the disciples being white, Mary and all of that, white models were set up to be painted, to pose as those biblical characters, those biblical people, for white supremacy. And this happened, like I said, mainly during the time of the Renaissance. Let's get another book to prove that the so-called American Negroes, West Indians, and Hispanics are the real Jews, and you're not Africans. Let's jump to this. This is another book called The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. And the funny thing about this is that it was written, the author of this book is Stephen Jacobs. He's a so-called white Jew. So you have so-called white Jews writing history books saying or stating that the real Jews are the blacks in America and the West Indies and the Haitians, and that the white, so-called white Jews are not the real Jews, they're converts. This is your real nationality, American Negroes, West Indians, Haitians, Hispanics. You're the real Jews. And you come from a great line of people. People and prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah, people like King David, King Solomon, the richest and wisest man who ever lived. You're not descended from Shaka Zulu and all these other Africanness. Our people don't even act or look like Africans. All right? The Africans sure don't look or act like us, even if they've been living here for a while. All right? You're the real Jews that the Bible speaks of. And you're in a low condition, or us as a people, I say, in a low condition because we broke the laws of God. It's time to come back to those laws. Because those earthquakes and storms, typhoons and terrorist attacks aren't going to stay over there in Asia forever. All right? We already had a taste of hurricanes here in America tearing up cities. Earthquakes again, wildfires again. All these things are going to continue to increase. Why? Because these are signs of the end. And our people, if they don't come back to their nationality and come back to the laws that we broke, you're gonna get caught up in these things and put to death. All right? Hurricane Katrina happened a while ago. That's nothing compared to what you're going to see happen in America and around this earth. That typhoon that killed 250,000 people, that's nothing compared to what's going to happen around the world and in America. And our people are going to be dying in these things. But we have to come back to the laws we broke in the Bible, not religion. Because the Bible doesn't say anything about religion. God never commanded anybody to follow religion. Let's get this book, The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. This is page 9. Let's find out what this so-called white Jew scholar has to say. It says, are African Americans the descendants of the ancient Hebrews of the Middle East? That's the question he poses. This question is answered in the affirmative with a resounding yes by Professor